Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm chatting with Martin Ciccio from Montage Gold. Guys, it's a great time to have Martino on because Montage has arguably the top gold project in construction right now in the Koné project in the Côte d'Ivoire. So I figured we'd have him on, talk about the rising gold price environment, what the temperature is like right now in terms of institutional investors and the majors that he's chatting with, and to get an update on how construction's going and what the long-term goals are for Montage Gold. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Martino, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So it's been a while since we've last chatted. I know a lot's happened with Montage, but first we got to talk about what's happening in the gold market. You are obviously CEO of a gold company that's got some exciting developments going on, but I imagine you got into this industry because you felt like gold would be that backbone of the global monetary system. And everything that's been happening in the world since, I mean, we could go way back, but let's just talk about since Trump got elected, has been nothing but bullish for gold, and that's reflected in the price. We look at Kitco at the time we're speaking, we're over 3,300 again, pushing all-time highs, not quite there, but very close. What's going through your head right now when you think about the gold market and you think that this is sustainable?
It's obviously a good time to be building a gold project these days with gold hitting record highs and the outlook remaining very bullish for the gold price. So when I take a look at the key drivers, I mean, what's interesting is that central banks, and in particular emerging market central banks, continue to aggressively accumulate. You have the geopolitical tensions that are driving safe haven investment, and you've had a lack of growth in the space with not much money going into exploration and development over the recent decade or two, which means that the gold supply has remained fairly stable, whereas demand now is increasing. So, very good time to be building a gold project such as ours.
So something I was chatting last week with Keith Newmeyer about is this idea that the majors aren't really buying into the current price of gold. And in his opinion, that's because we're not seeing the level of M&A that he would have expected. In his case, I know First Majestic went and did a major acquisition of Gato Silver. But we look around and it's still, there is M&A. Let's not pretend that there isn't. But we look at Newmont, who just unloaded a whole series of gold projects. They were initially setting out to get 2 billion. They ended up getting over 4, and they're not even done yet. And then we just sort of look around the industry, and you'd expect that we'd be seeing a lot more of these transactions, especially companies like Montage that have large resources on the books that would be very attractive for these majors. I'm curious here, you're having conversations with institutional investors. I imagine you are having some conversations with majors because they're also looking at getting in on financings where they can, we'll say, spruce up their bottom line a little bit. How have the conversations been over the last few months as gold's been ripping?
I just take a step back and look at what happened in the past versus today. I think in the past you've had a lot more money going into exploration and project development, which meant that there was a pipeline of growth that could have been appealing for larger companies. But today there's clearly a lack of growth out there in the space. Case in point, in Montage today, we have one of the largest gold projects in construction worldwide with a production profile of over 300,000 ounces per year already and set to continue to increase given the exploration success that we've been having with higher grades that can come into the mine plan early on. So I think, as you say, there has been appetite on the M&A side. You just haven't seen big projects get bought because there's obviously not a lot of big projects out there these days.
So since we last spoke, you guys hedged out some of the gold price risk, we'll say, at $2,500 an ounce for 400K ounces between 2027 and 2028. Is that a regular conversation that you guys are having, maybe looking forward to trying to hedge out, sell more, or even reducing that hedge via maybe my understanding is you guys did that hedge via puts. You guys could, I guess, theoretically go in and buy some calls to offset that. Are these conversations you guys are having regularly?
For us, it's very interesting because we secured significant headroom with our financing. We secured over 950 million of funding sources on a capex of 835. So this gave us the flexibility to only buy puts and not put calls in place. Had we put a caller today, we would be massively out of the collar, and you'd be looking at funding your collar, so effectively having to close out your positions while funding the project capex. And we've seen that happen to others in the past. We just haven't seen the markets move this quickly over recent years. So today we have full exposure, of course, to the gold price increase. Our strategy was to mirror the exposure. So for the first 400,000 ounces that go to Wheaton, we owe them 20% of our production, which drops afterwards. So we bought 400,000 ounces of puts at 2,500 to lock in roughly $1,500 margins because we're producing at in the low 1,000. So at higher gold price environment, we don't see the need to take on more hedging given that we already have significant margins.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Montage. We had you on about 6 months ago, but there's still going to be people who are new to the company. They don't know the story. So, can you just quickly give us that high level overview of the company so we can set the stage for getting into the specifics?
Excellent. So the new management team joined Montage about 14 months ago. Before, responsible for building four mines in 10 years, 15 million ounces of discoveries, and creating one of the larger players in the region. So, looking to be a little bit more entrepreneurial, we got the Lundin backing as key shareholders, and then we went looking for, what's the right growth story and platform to join. That's where we identified Montage. So, we joined 14 months ago. And since then, we got our environmental permit, mining permit. We brought strategics on board with Zhejiang and of course, Lundin's. We locked in the financing, launched construction in November of last year, so it's a 2-year build. And we've relaunched the exploration, so on track to find 1 million ounces at 50% better grades. So in a nutshell, today we have the largest project in construction worldwide, production profile of at least 300,000 ounces for the first 10 years. And our goal is to create a premier African gold producer. So we're well on track to achieving that, given the very busy and successful year that we've had over the last 12 months.
So I'm certain we've got some shareholders of Montage that are watching this interview right now, and they're going to say, you got to ask for a construction update. How's things going? My understanding here is you guys first began construction back in December. So what can you tell us about how that construction is going so far? What color can you give us?
I was just there last week with our chairman and some of our largest shareholders, and I can tell you that they were very impressed with the execution thus far of our project. So if I take a step back, I mean the long lead items for us were actually ordered last year in August. So as soon as we did the equity raise, having Zhejiang and Lundin participate, we knew that this project would be green lighted, and therefore, to not waste any time, we started to order long lead items, and today we're benefiting from all of that. In addition, in November, we published the updated CapEx numbers and schedule, and you might have seen in there that we've added 33% more power into the primary crusher, 50% more power in the secondary. We replaced the two HPGR lines with one larger one, and we've added 10% more into the ball mill. So all that to say that we've looked at where the bottlenecks were within the plant, and have started to address that already day one, because we know that with all the discoveries making, this plant is going to this operation is going to go on for a very long time. As far as the build, we published an update about a month ago. The build is going very well. We're ahead of schedule on, in fact, all key construction work streams. We've started to pour and almost finished now the ring beams for the CIL tanks. Those were poured at least 1 month early versus our schedule. We have close to 2,000 people on site today, most of them sourced locally. We've filled all the key positions. We have over 200 machines, equipments on site. So I mean, it's go time, and things are progressing well.
How stressful is that for you? You just said, if I heard that correctly, 2,000 people on site working right now. I understand you guys are using contractors to handle most of this, but I mean, that sounds overwhelming when you raise all this capital and you're dependent on these key individuals to manage that. I'm curious how you monitor that, how stressful it is. What does that look like?
Well, in fact, we do most of the work self-perform. So today, the key work streams is the civils, and that's been going very well. And the reason that we're able to maintain or beat schedule is because we're the masters of our own destiny. So being self-perform, we've hired all the people ourselves, trained them up. We started training programs last year in August and September, and have continued to ramp up the training programs. So to your question, I'm not I'm not very stressed because we brought a team that has built 4 mines in 10 years in the region. Two of them have been in Côte d'Ivoire. So having brought teams that have worked together before, have done this, and have been very successful means that we have the right ingredients to be successful here at Montage.
That's certainly something that if I'm an equity investor and I'm watching this, that I find to be a key piece of information that your group has built 4 mines in the last 10 years, two of them in this specific region, because we all know that, and we've seen it a million times with, you get a management team that goes into an area and they get blindsided by some of the processes working with certain governments. And it sounds like you guys have somewhat of a vision of what to look out for and have learned from past mistakes when it comes to that regulatory environment and just the different pressures and interest groups that are out there.
Correct. And look, I mean, in other parts of the world, it might have taken, multiples of the time to ramp up a team that quickly. But today we're in a sweet spot in Côte d'Ivoire as there's been 3 builds in the country in the last 5 years. And the last build got finished in July of last year with Endeavor's mine. So there's lots of skilled and unskilled labor that's available in country. Uh, and that allows us to, of course, ramp up very quickly. As you say, there's always, lessons learned from the past, but more so once you've been well established in a country, it also helps because you've built strong ties with government, local population, etc. And that trust that you built, is carried from one build, one project to the next.
So my understanding is that you guys are still very much focused on further exploration, despite the mine being under construction. What can you tell us about that? What do the ongoing exploration efforts look like?
So we published a target in September of last year of finding 1 million ounces at 50% better grades to be found before we start production. So basically between this year and next year to be able to publish at least 1 million ounces at 50% better grades. The goal for us is to find deposits that can come into the mine plan day one. So to be able to push out lower grade reserves and to be able to replace that with 50% better grade. So what that does is allows us to boost our production from 300 to 350, 400 in the first years and maintain at least 10 years at over 300,000 ounces per year. So the first year of drilling has been extremely successful. We have over 50 targets on the property. So the question is not, where is the potential? It's more a question of how do you navigate through all this potential to be able to prioritize your drilling efforts. So the strategy that we've taken is because we're chasing grade, the best way to know what the grade is to delineate a portion of the ore body. So whether it's a big anomaly, trend, etc., let's go and drill out a portion of the ore body, and then we'll know exactly what the grade is, and we'll be able to decide in the second step which deposits we want to increase in size through step out drilling in priority. So to recap, last year we delineated new discoveries for seven new deposits. So seven deposits were advanced to resource stage. So we went from two deposits in the study to now seven, and six other targets were advanced to pre-resource stage. So if you do the math, it means that by the end of this year, we expect to have anywhere between 10 and 15 new deposits identified and at resource status, where you'll be able to rank the deposits based on grade, strip ratio, distance to plant, metallurgy, etc., which will give us one more year in 2026 before starting production to then go out, just step out drilling, and identify the ones that we want to come into the mine plan day one. So I think when we published this million ounce target, all we had were dots on the map of saying, well, those are the targets that we prefer. And today we're able to point to them and say, yeah, but those dots now have resources, and look at them. All of them are at least 50% higher grade. And in fact, they're between 60 and 180% better grades to our Konya deposit.
So I think that this is an important question for our audience to hear an answer to, because they're often looking at, you know, stocks that are further along the risk curve where they're being told by management teams, you were only, a few meters away from production. How much historic drilling has happened on the Kone deposit?
Drilling historically has been scattered across the property. I think the previous owners were looking for million ounce plus deposits, but their priorities have always been elsewhere. So the tenements to the north used to belong to La Mancha, that became Endeavor, and Randgold, that became, of course, Barrick. They JV'd the property 70-30, but right afterwards, Randgold was injected into Barrick, and their focus shifted. So when 4 million ounces were found at the Coney deposit in 2021, that JV got injected into Montage in exchange for shares and a royalty, which by the way we ended up purchasing back half of it last year. So most of the targets that were in fact drilled out last year has been uh, most of them grassroots drilling done through auger drilling, geochem, etc. So brand new discoveries. So for example, we expect to publish new resources at Koban North in the upcoming weeks. That's just north of the Gombogo deposit, and this is a brand new discovery thanks to the drilling done last year. Similar goes to the local low trend, where there's a 9 kilometer anomaly that we've been drilling.
The number we have here is it's just under 200,000 meters drilling. Does that sound close to accurate?
That would be on the full property, but most of that drilling was actually done on the main Kone deposit, where to date we've done over 130,000 meters on just that one deposit.
And have you guys published any guidance on how much drilling you intend to do in 2025?
Yeah, so last year in 2024, we drilled 83,000 meters. Most of it actually between the months of September and December, where we ramped up to 8 rigs. Again, you have to remember that the team joined right before the rainy season last year. We had to ramp up the team, so we went from having a handful of people on the exploration side to almost 140 people today, or as of September last year. We ramped up from 2 rigs to 8, 9 rigs in September, and we've kept that pace going since. So last year, 83,000 meters. This year, more than 90,000 meters being drilled for a budget of 14 million. And then I can say that, most of a big chunk of that drilling has already been done in the first 4 months of the year.
Uh, let's change the focus now to your partnership with African Gold. What can you tell us?
So our strategy is to build out an exploration pipeline, and we've been doing it twofold. One, through our regular granting process, so to be able to apply for interesting tenements in Côte d'Ivoire and the region. And second, I mean, if you want to be successful in this space, you need strong partnerships, whether it's partnerships with local stakeholders, government, communities, contractors, financiers, strategic shareholders, and oftentimes we tend to think that we're in competition with other companies, but really we're not. Everybody has the common objective of creating value for the companies and for the host countries in which we operate. And sometimes to be able to accelerate value creation for all parties, it's best to identify which partnerships are the most appealing. So for companies, smaller companies such as African Gold, it was very appealing for them to partner with a company such as ourselves, given the strong track record of discoveries that our team has, and specifically in Côte d'Ivoire. So we very much like, of course, the African Gold assets. There's already over 400,000 ounces there at 3 grams. Uh, we're currently drilling. You would have seen a press release, in fact, even earlier today, where 3 targets have been identified, all confirming high grade mineralization. So we're very excited with African Gold. We see potential more consolidation with adjacent tenements to continue to grow its footprint.
And you guys also have a strategic investment now in Sanu Gold. Is the strategy here similar with African Gold?
It's similar but a little nuanced. In Côte d'Ivoire with African Gold, we took over as operator, given our strong presence in the country, and then the fact that we can share expertise and synergies with African Gold. In Guinea, Montage did not have a presence previously in Guinea, and therefore this was a nice way to start to have a foothold into another country, in a country of high regard for us. Uh, Sanyu has three very attractive properties in Guinea, all within the Sigiri Basin. And Sanyu and African Gold is their proximity to existing plants and infrastructure. So that means that if you find several million ounce deposits, then that creates the opportunity to be a standalone project. But if you only find a fraction of that, then those ounces are still very valuable because they're located near other companies' mills.
So, what's the long term vision here? Do if I were to ask you where Montage is going to sit in 5 years, do you see this being progressing towards being a major gold producer? Are you lining this up to be taken out by a major? Which I know you don't have a crystal ball, and I'm kind of asking you uh, to have one here. But I imagine when you're sitting around with your team and you guys are putting your long term objectives on a board, these are conversations you're having. If I were to ask you to quickly summarize what the long term goal is here, if you're trying to sell a shareholder to just buy shares, close their eyes, and wait 7 years, where's Montage going to be?
I mean, our goal with Montage, and the reason we joined Montage was to build out a multi-asset company focused on Africa with the Lundin backing. So our goal is to create a premier African gold producer. We're doing that one by bringing in into production as quick as possible our flagship Kony project, and increasing its production size to be closer at tier one status. So with the new discoveries being made, and the higher grade potential we see, we talked earlier about the plant already being debottlenecked. So we think those two factors will mean that the Kony project could produce at very high levels for a long period of time. So then it's a question of, okay, if your objective is to create a multi-asset company, how do you go about doing that while making sure that you're creating value for shareholders along the way? As our objective is not to not to dilute shareholders. And we did this financing in place last year with one goal, and that was maximize NPV per share, which takes into account cost of capital and shareholder dilution. So in order to build out our business, what we're looking at is building out our exploration pipeline and forming partnerships with companies such as Sanyu and African Gold that can help down the road for us identify new opportunities. So the idea right now is we need optionality. So if you have optionality, you have, of course, by definition, options to choose from that create what creates the most value for shareholders for your project number two, three, and four. And what we've seen in this space is that companies' ability to find, build, and operate is what creates lots of value over long periods of time, and those are the skill sets we brought into Montage.
Well, Martino, thanks very much for hopping on here. I congratulate you with all the success you guys have had so far. We see a share price that's up nearly 200% over the last 1 year period. From my viewpoint, I look at what you guys are doing. All I see is execution. I can tell you're laser focused. You come on here, you're able to answer questions directly. I appreciate that. I can't tell you how many CEOs we talk with who can't do that, so I appreciate that. I think that what we need as gold investors, many of the people who are in our community and follow our channel, is we need wins. And because we always have this conversation of when's capital going to flow into the mining sector? Well, it's going to happen when there's wins. Right now, most of the generalists out there, they look at it, they go, well, there aren't enough wins. Why would I want to be there? And I think that if we had more operators like you guys out there that were focused on execution and delivering for shareholders, that wouldn't be a problem. So I applaud everything you're doing, and hopefully you'll come back on here in the future and update us as your construction and production begins to roll out.
Excellent. Well, look, always a pleasure to be on the show, and it's always great because it gives us time to do a look back of last 3 months, 6 months, and realize that the story is progressing nicely.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Guys, also let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks for watching, everyone.